Donald Trump is trying to make America's 250th birthday all about him. Part of that was branding his 80th birthday as part of that celebration. On Sunday, Trump handed over the White House to his friend, UFC CEO Dana White, to transform the South Lawn into a violent spectacle featuring bloody and bizarre cage matches, and prominently displayed members of the U.S. military who were required to meet specific fitness standards just to attend. What do you make of the fact that he wanted troops there?
You know, that was the element of this that I found the most disrespectful. Because not just because of the singular incident, because you obviously think about all of the other things these service members could be doing at that moment. They could be with their family, they could be preparing to keep our nation safe, but also because of the myriad of ways that this administration has disrespected service members for the past previous years. They started off the administration firing veterans during DOGE, 50% of our workforce. They went on to do a total flip-flop on their opposition to forever wars and wage forever wars globally, resulting in the death of service members, all the while maintaining this caricature of the military. This caricature that, the military, the second that you saluted and parade yourself around service members, somehow you're strong on national security and pro-veteran, when in reality, they have been exactly the opposite.
It's Ken Harbaugh with the MeidasTouch Network. The spectacle on the South Lawn was one of the most degrading moments in our nation's history. The grift was staggering, with Trump-related interests promoted one after another. And you could only watch the event on TV if you paid one of Trump's biggest backers, David Ellison, to stream it on Paramount+. Then there was the sheer grotesqueness of it all. The insult thrown at a former First Lady, I won't dignify it by repeating it, but what hit me hardest was the abuse of the military. It's a pattern with this administration. Whenever they need a veneer of respectability, they reach for the military or veterans, even as they degrade everything we are supposed to stand for. I talked about this with Kris Goldsmith, Army combat vet, founder of Veterans Fighting Fascism, and host of the On Offense podcast on the Valor Media Network. Here's our conversation. Kris, thanks for joining. Would love your take on this infuriating, embarrassing, humiliating, honestly emasculating spectacle on the White House lawn. It was supposed to be a tribute to America's birthday and manliness writ large, and it just turned into Nero in his last days. I'm sure you saw the dirt bikes doing flips. This story is just breaking now, but apparently the reason the Marine Corps Honor Guard was obliged to salute the fighters on the walkout is because they assigned each of them a Medal of Honor recipient as one of their escorts. And so they were entitled, the Medal of Honor recipients, to a salute, which appeared to be going to the fighters. I'll leave it there because I just want your thoughts, which I'm sure are similar to mine, on how degrading this whole spectacle was.
Yeah, it's really important for people who are criticizing this event, like on social media, to put this in the context of the way that the Trump administration is treating veterans and service members right now. Last week, there was a yearly commemoration of all of the women veterans who've been lost in war, and this year they canceled because the Navy, the Air Force, and the Space Force said that they couldn't be involved because it was too DEI. I mean, the Trump administration is saying that we can't honor the dead because they're too diverse. And at the same time, they're dragging out racists to put on a stage literally on the lawn of the People's House. It is profoundly disappointing, but not at all surprising that we saw a reality TV star who's now absolutely desperate and sundowning and afraid of dying and being remembered as a piece of shit as he tries to stamp his mark on the world. And he's doing more of what he's always done, right? Like the Trump signs, they're not gold, they're spray painted, right? It's gaudy, it's cheap, It's an attempt to look like something that it is not. That is who Trump is, and that is what he's trying to brand America as. And those of us who have actually sacrificed for this country and served this country, it is personal to us when our country is made to look like a cartoonish version of America, like the Burger Kingification of the White House is absolutely disgusting.
It is. This wasn't on my run of show, but I got to ask you, because it's of a piece of this gaudy, grotesque display on the White House lawn. I have to ask you about Hegseth's performance in Normandy on June 6th, where he said the invasion of immigrants is every bit as threatening to Europe as Nazism. And I'm paraphrasing. I'm sure I'll catch some heat for it, but that's what he meant. And it was received as badly as you might imagine it would have been received. We're coming up on Juneteenth. This episode might actually air on Juneteenth. And I had a conversation with Malcolm Nance about that Normandy cemetery, in which he pointed out that there are at least 3 Black women from the 688 buried in that cemetery who gave their lives in the course of that invasion and the establishment of the beachhead. And I think they were delivering mail. And the idea that diversity is a weakness, that immigrants weaken the fabric of not just America, but our military, is no more offensive than on a day like June 6th, much less June 19th.
Yeah. To have Pete Hegseth, the drunken former weekend Fox News host, come out and try to lecture our allies about security seems pretty wild. I mean, the man who has been violating international law and American law as he's bombing boats, apparently that some may have been filled with victims of human trafficking, and he's trying to lecture our allies about their own policies. That is beyond tone deaf. I can't think of a phrase that accurately describes how ironic it is to have this idiot meathead come and stand in front of a bunch of patriots who we've stood by, for 8 decades now, and for him to try to act like he's superior in any way. What's sad is that Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump don't understand that the world is laughing at us right now. And what their little adventure in Iran has shown all of us, and to my own surprise, is that the United States is not nearly as strong or militarily dominant as the world thought that we were.
Hey everyone, quick break to say thank you. My last trip to Ukraine was made possible by those of you who signed up for my Substack page. There's a free option too, but the paid subs, which help cover my trips, start at just $8 a month, which actually goes a lot farther than you might think given how cheap it is to sleep in a trench. I'll be going back, and I'll also be posting frequent updates from the front until then. And we've got the Meidas Defense Weekly Substack Live on Wednesdays at 11 a.m. Check that out, and if you haven't yet, please subscribe to the Ken Harbaugh Show Substack channel. Your support is what makes all this possible. Back to the show.
Pete Hegseth, through prosecuting in absolutely unnecessary and illegal war, has depleted our stockpiles, has shown that a much smaller, much poorer, much less technologically advanced adversary can hold the United States at bay. And not just hold the United States at bay, but completely destroy our stockpiles of the ammunition that would be necessary to fight a larger adversary, namely China. So their little adventurism that they're trying to pass off as this, ode to masculinity, saying that we're negotiating from a dominant position. No, we're not. We are negotiating from the position of Iran knows that they can put a stranglehold on the global economy And that the only result of that diplomatically was more pressure against the United States, because everyone around the world looked at what we were doing in Iran and shook their heads and like were telling us, you guys are fucking idiots. And the sad thing is that there is no getting through to people like Trump and Hegseth. They exist in their information bubbles that are reinforced by everyone around them. There is no popping that bubble. There is no permeating it with actual facts, with helping them understand that the opinions of our allies matter not just for us right now and for the immediate gain, but for our children and grandchildren who are going to inherit the diplomatic mess and the national security mess that they are creating right now.
I'm glad that you have introduced the observation that the world is laughing at us, because I am sure that if you were at the White House during this spectacle, if you were Trump or Hegseth or Mark Zuckerberg, you thought the world loved you because you're surrounded by a bunch of, sycophants who think that kind of thing is Americana. And it's just such a small sliver of who we are as a nation. But you're right, the whole world is laughing at us. And I've always thought that the better analogy to understand Trump and Trumpism wasn't, in fact, the Hitlerian comparison, but Mussolini, the clown, the deadly clown, the brutal, bloodthirsty clown, but a leader who the entire world mocked before, during, and after his reign. I've always admired your ability to end on a positive note. Can you help us imagine a future in 30 years where those folks on the White House lawn during this spectacle deny they were ever there, kind of the opposite of Woodstock, right? Everybody was at Woodstock because it was cool. In 30 years, nobody's going to remember where their MAGA hats are. Nobody, or at least when you're talking to your kids and grandkids, you're going to deny vehemently that you were ever on this train, because it's becoming increasingly apparent to me that not just the whole world is laughing at Trump, but even Americans are beginning to realize what a clown show we're living through.
I think that we are in a fundamentally different time than the one that I grew up in. I was born in 85. Growing up, I didn't hear a lot of good things said about Nixon, who resigned in disgrace, right? But part of the reason that Fox News exists and that whole conservative, that alternative facts media ecosystem exists is precisely because conservatives looked at what happened to Nixon and then what happened to the Republican Party for decades after, was that without their information ecosystem to keep the rubes hypnotized, like they lose elections. So I don't think that there's going to be a world in which every MAGA acolyte, is acting as if they were never part of it. But I do think that there is going to be a healthy portion who do cleave off and try to deny their former affiliation. And I am not one to go welcoming these people back. That's not my role in society. But there are plenty of less bitter people around the country who might be willing to welcome them back into their good graces. The whole point of my nonprofit and my brand On Offense is to impose costs on the opposition. And it's not just about vengeance, it's about justice. And these who have been actively supportive, not just neutral, but actively supportive of authoritarianism, we deserve justice against them as well. So I am going to remember, even if they try to make the world forget. I will always remember.
That was an excerpt of my conversation with Kris Goldsmith. For the full episode, check out my Substack. The link is below. Thanks.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.